Okay, so everything that I wrote down on this notepad here, all the different things that I've written, this is going to teach you how to stop watching porn. I know this because I went through all of this and was able to do it on my own. And not only was I able to stop watching pornography, but I was also able to accomplish some really cool and amazing things. And I'm going to share with you the process of what I did to basically end my pornography addiction and basically end up in a beach house. Live here in Laguna Beach. This is a beach house. I can walk to the beach every day when I go out to my driveway and get in the car. I always see a view of the ocean. I used to be homeless at one point. I remember I would sleep in the car and I would get like a knock on my window at like 3 a.m. because I would park in parking lots, and it would be a security guard saying like, "Hey, you got to move your car. You gotta move." Or sometimes it would be the police, trying to get me out of that parking lot. And nowadays, I am still woken up by something at 3 a.m., but it's not a security guard anymore, and it's not a police officer. It's actually the sound of the ocean waves because I'm so close to the beach. Um, Last year, I averaged walking 7 miles a day. As of today, I've lost 50 pounds from when I was my heaviest watching pornography, doing some things that I shouldn't have been doing. And we're going to get into a lot of that. So, and then of course, I used to be an Uber driver. That was my full-time job, driving 12 hours every single day. And, after I learned basically the method of what I'm basically gonna teach you in this, once I mastered that method, I was basically able to start two businesses. One of them being the coaching program that I do to help you guys get out of pornography addiction. The other one being a software startup. And I was able to start those two businesses, and I didn't have to be an Uber driver anymore. And the two businesses are still going to this very day, and I'm still able to work a 9 to 5 job, which is really nice because, working a 9 to 5 job is kind of like therapeutic for me. And then I get to come home and like work on my other two businesses, and it's just a really great lifestyle compared to how things were several years ago when I was no drive, no ambition, constantly procrastinating. And that might sound like you. Maybe you're not waking up early, or maybe you're skipping work, or maybe you isolate yourself, or you try to, not want to talk to family and friends because you just want to watch pornography. So I'm gonna teach you, like I said, what I learned. I spent about a year in most libraries around Southern California, pulling out every single psychology book that I could. And I went through almost every single psychology book you can think of, learning about the brain. And when I started to learn about this, I learned that there were different parts of the brain that you could trick. The few parts of the brain that were associated with watching porn, I learned that you could trick those into not only stop watching it, but also to then redirect that obsessive energy into doing something really amazing with your life. And so I learned how to trick those parts of my brain. And that's how I ended up here at the beach house. And 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I was homeless. So to go from being homeless to now here at this beach house, it's really an amazing thing, and I attribute it to what I learned here. So yeah, so it's really cool to live an amazing life like this. So I'm here to tell you guys that the single biggest factor that is holding you back in life, and I'm a testament to it, is watching porn. When you watch it, there's a lot of side effects to it. It clouds your memory. It clouds your judgment, your clarity. It ruins your sleep. It promotes anger issues. A lot of guys that I work with, and I do one-on-one coaching and group coaching with guys to get them out of pornography addiction. One of the things that I notice with my one-on-one clients is that they have these anger problems. And I'll tell you guys later on how anger is linked to watching pornography. You might think, well, if you're watching pornography, why are you an angry person? But it actually has a lot to do with elevated spikes of testosterone, as well as improved, or not improved, but increased levels of instant gratification in the brain. So we'll talk about that. I'm really excited to share that part with you guys. But let's get into the nuts and bolts of what I wrote down on this little tiny piece of paper. It's so funny because what I've written here on this little tiny piece of paper is stuff that people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars sometimes with therapists to figure out how to get out of their corn addiction. And, like I said, I spent a year in most libraries here in Southern California. I live here in Orange County. This is Laguna Beach. Like I said, I live here by the ocean. And, I just would bounce around to different types of libraries and pull all these psychology books out. And, there's a lot of information that I've gathered over the years, but I took the most important parts of what I learned and I consolidated it into this. So what I'm about to share with you in this video is going to be in this training is basically going to be everything that you need to know in order for you to get out of it. And if you're lucky, not only will you get out of it, but you'll build an amazing life where you can do what you want when you want. I'm actually thinking about just leaving the whole 9 to 5 life and just focusing on the businesses because I want to be able to travel more. And that's the thing that you should want to for your life is you should be able to want to do what you want, when you want, wherever you want. And so one of the things that I've been thinking about is also leaving the 9 to 5 life and just focusing on the businesses so that this way I can travel when I want. This way that, I nowadays I can take a day off whenever I want to with my 9 to 5 job and it's great. But, imagine being able to wake up and be able to make that choice every single day. It's really great. So I'm really considering it. But, I'm not here to tell you that like, oh, I'm rich or anything like that because one of the things that I've seen a lot of with these so-called gurus is that they portray the rich life and all of that. And although I would say that I'm severely more financially set than I was several years ago when I was homeless, I'm not here to tell you guys that like I'm rich or anything like that. This isn't a mansion or anything like that, but it is by the beach, and I think there's a lot of people who would love to be in a position like this to be able to wake up every morning. In fact, my morning routine is basically I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I have a home gym. And so I basically do my workouts and then I walk down to the beach and just take a walk over there. Takes me like 3 minutes before I touch the water. It's amazing, And like I said, I hear the ocean waves. Sometimes that's my alarm clock. And like I said, this isn't a mansion and I'm not exceptionally like, I'm not a billionaire or anything like that, but I do think that, you know, this life was not achievable when I was consistently watching porn every single day, when I was consistently, um, you know, how do they say it? Stroking the chicken every single day. So if you can, here's my hope for you. If you can learn how to stop doing those things and harvest that obsessive energy that you put into it right now, you stand a chance at getting something like this. You have a chance at living this life because I'll tell you right now, I'm not anybody that's overly special that learned something that no one's ever going to learn. Anybody can do this, okay? Anybody can learn how to trick different parts of their brain. I know this because I've already coached roughly close to 200 people already how to trick this part of their brain. Okay? So believe me when I say that this is not an exceptional this is not any exception to the rule. You can achieve something like this as well. And you may not even want to live by the beach. Maybe you want to have like some cool like desert oasis, or maybe you'd like to go live in the snow, or maybe you want to live in some tropical area, or maybe you do want to live by the beach. whatever it is that you want to do in life, or maybe it doesn't have anything to do with where you live. Maybe you just want to, rekindle that relationship that is broken with your partner, or maybe you want to be in better shape, or maybe you want to find love and you're having a hard time with it because corn is setting these expectations in your head and real life is feeling dull. Whatever it is, all of those things I was able to do, and I attribute what I learned over these last couple of years to being able to do that. So, if you can learn how to get over it, then I promise that you've got a really cool path ahead of you that is, it's gonna help you a lot. So let's jump right into this. So like I said, by the way, I was addicted to corn for about 20 years. I started really, really young, probably when I was about like 8 years old was when I first saw it. So from the very, very beginning, like early childhood, I was exposed to it. And as time went on, and for those of you who are kind of new to this, you'll learn that the more you watch it, either the frequency starts to increase to the point where maybe it's like you will start watching it like 3 times a day, or or the stuff that you watch starts to get like a lot more extreme. So you might watch more like violent stuff or group stuff or pain related stuff, or weird scenarios or something like that. I just had one of my clients tell me the other day, he's kind of like a newer client, and he comes to me and where he was telling me, he's like, I don't understand, like, about 5 years ago when I first started watching it, all I ever wanted to watch was just regular stuff, stuff that you would just normally see in some random magazine. And now he's like, I have no idea how this happened, but now, like, now I'm just like questioning my sexuality. And, I do have an answer for why that tends to happen. He's not any kind of rare case. That does happen a lot. So yeah, so I'll explain to you guys that on why it's what's happening with that situation. Actually, I'll just kind of tell you. So, normally when things start to get a little bit more progressed after you start watching it and starts to get a little bit more extreme, you really start to chase novelty, and novelty is things that are like new and exciting. So imagine this guy started watching regular stuff 5 years ago. Well, if he went a whole entire year of watching this stuff, eventually it's going to whatever he's watching, like let's just call it boy girl stuff. The boy girl stuff is not going to do it for you anymore. So you might escalate to watching maybe three people, right? And you start watching that for a certain amount of time, and then after, that's like not doing it for you anymore, then maybe you start watching some other like kink related stuff, and like I said, it progresses so much until the point where you're now watching stuff that you never thought that you would be into. And that's what happened with this client of mine. He just kind of like escalated to the point where he got to stuff that he never thought that he was going to be into. And so that's what basically happened with him and why he's out here now questioning his sexuality. And the thing is that he even told me, he's like, I don't want to like this stuff. I don't want to be into this stuff, but for whatever reason, it's drawing me to that. And that's where that's one of like the telltale signs where that you have an addiction and it's not actually like true within yourself that that's what you want to do, where you can actually look in the mirror and be like, man, if I could just like snap my fingers and not be into this, like I would do it. So it was really great that he shared that, because a lot of men fall into that where they're like now into stuff that they never thought that they would be. And it doesn't even have to be things that are homosexual related. It could just be things that kink related stuff that they never thought that they would be into, just different types of kinks. So, like I said, I was a 20-year addict. I was exposed to it very young. I was living in my car for a period of time because I was so like wrapped up in that life that I didn't have the drive or the ambition to work. And, just living in the car was just like the most bare basic thing that I could do. Obviously, I was lazy and I was dating a girl at the time, and I was also cheating. And then over the course of my relationships, like it was just like back and forth, like constant cheating. And it's all because of pornography and the expectation that I had for the partners that I had. And obviously, when they couldn't meet that expectation, a very, very high and unrealistic one, and then I sought out other people, it was just like a constant back and forth. So, and it all started with the watching pornography. So, like I said, I used to be homeless. And when I stopped watching it and learned how to redirect the obsessive energy into something more productive for my life, that's how I was able to get here and be able to live by the beach. That's how now I'm able to wake up sometimes at 4 o'clock in the morning and it's to the sound of the waves crashing. And like I said, I used to be an Uber driver. I would be walking 12, or not walking, but I'd be driving 12 hours every single day. And now, like I said, I own 2 businesses, work a 9 to 5 job, so basically 3 sources of income. I travel pretty regularly mostly whenever I want. Usually travel about 3 times a month. Just go on little vacations and all that because, back then when I was watching porn, I didn't have any money at all or anything like that. So, wasn't able to do those kinds of things. But now that, I have the businesses and work a 9 to 5 job, and now I'm like in this spot where like life is really, really good because now you have some sense of security. Now I'm able to do the kind of traveling that I want to do. I used to wake up at 2 p.m. every single day. So like, I mean, you can imagine, and maybe some of you can relate to this, but imagine, living in your car, sleeping, waking up at 2 p.m., right? And then it's like, what do you do with your day? You just kind of like sit there and like play on your phone and just wait till the day goes by till you go back to sleep and then you wake up and do the same thing. It's a terrible, terrible life. Like no ambition, no drive. And maybe some of you are maybe not homeless right now, but maybe some of you are not ambitious right now, you don't have any drive, but maybe you do have these aspirations where you're like, I want to build a business. Like, I want to be successful. I want to have the nice house. Like, I want to be able to be by the beach. I want the nice car. I want all these great things. I just don't know why I can't get up and go fucking do it. And part of that reason I would bet is because it's probably because maybe you don't recognize that you have an addiction to pornography, and maybe that's true. Maybe you don't have an addiction to it. But I would venture to say that you might have some sort of dependency on it. For example, I work with a lot of female clients, a lot of females who are addicted to it. And a lot of them will tell me, and this is a common theme that I see with women, is that they'll tell me like, "Hey, I don't really like need it per se. I just kind of use it because I have a hard time falling asleep. And so I'll watch it to put me to sleep." And so that's not necessarily depends on how you define it, and it depends on the scenario, but that's not necessarily an addiction. That is more of like a dependency. It's a dependency for her to be able to go to sleep. So and speaking of sleep, like I said, now I wake up at 5 a.m. every single day. My body wants me to get up. I used to like hit that alarm snooze every single time, probably like 17 times in a row until I just overslept everything. But now, majority of the time, I would say like I'm up by 5 a.m. Sometimes I wake up before my alarm, which is kind of cool. And then, I've got those extra hours before most of America wakes up. And then, I've already done a workout. I've already read a book. I've already, showered, gotten ready for the day and ready to either head to work if I'm working that day or already at my laptop working on my businesses. So, like that, imagine being able to have that like drive. And then, like I said, I used to weigh just crazy. I used to weigh 260 pounds. As of today, I'm actually down 50 pounds. So I'm really, really happy to say that ending the dependency or the addiction to watching corn has really it ignites a fire in you that wants you to improve all the different areas of life. And like I said from the very beginning, if you can learn to trick those 3 parts of your brain into being more driven towards the stuff that's more productive for your life instead of spotlighting in, and that's a key word throughout this lesson today, spotlighting in on what you should not be watching, which is corn. If you can find a way to trick those parts of your brain, man, like I said, you can do some pretty amazing stuff. So let's get into this, okay? So that's a little bit of an intro on me. That's a little bit of what I do. That's what I'm about. Like I said, there's a lot of gurus out there that I feel like are not very honest and truthful about what they do. I would venture to say a lot of them still work some sort of 9 to 5 job, but they just portray that they're running their businesses on their own, or it's not making as much money as they say that it does. But one of the things that I want to do, at least with my channel, is be able to be very transparent with you guys and let you know that, hey, like this was only 3 years ago when I was still struggling with this. And it takes a while to be able to get to these things. So like this is not necessarily a mansion, yeah, but I'm by the beach, but it's not necessarily a mansion, I have 2 businesses, but I still work a 9 to 5 job. I've lost 50 pounds, but I'm not in the peak shape that I want to be yet. But all of that is like we're on the way there. So my promise to you guys is that I'm not going to tell you that I am, like a billionaire, or I've got this like shredded body, or you guys will be able to see that either way anyways, or that I drive a Lamborghini or anything like that. My thing is to be real and honest and straight up and as forward as possible, because ultimately what I want for you to be able to do is get out of this addiction, and I want you to harvest that raw energy, and I want you to put it into something that you want to improve in your life. That's what we're going to talk about. So anyways, I'm here to tell you that corn is not the problem, okay? And you guys might think that, oh, corn is a problem, like it's holding me back and all of that stuff, and I get that, but it's actually not. So, how do you know if you have an addiction or a dependency on it? Okay, so a lot of people asking like, I don't think I have an addiction. I just really like to watch it, or I only watch it like a couple of times a week. I don't think I have an addiction to it. So let me tell you, let me give you a couple of indicators that would suggest that you do have either an addiction or a dependency on it, neither of which is good for you to have. So number one, you're always tired. So if you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, I don't want to get out of bed. A lot of people say, well, I'm just not a morning person. But anybody who's driven, purpose driven, wakes up in the morning, just like I do, like I said, at 5 o'clock in the morning, gets up and is like, okay, let's do this. Like we got a lot of stuff to do. Like we are purpose driven. We know what we want to do. We got it. We got to get to it. So if you're waking up in the morning, you're like, oh, I'll get up in like 15 minutes. Oh, I'll get up in 5 minutes. Oh, I'll get up. Alexa, like, I'll get up later. Like that's a sign that you may have a dependency on something like pornography. Another one is if you procrastinate. This is a big one because a lot of times we procrastinate because we are trying to avoid the thing that we know is going to make us uncomfortable. And what's funny is that corn is kind of like a coping mechanism. So what we end up doing is we end up gravitating towards corn because it gives us more comfort than the actual thing that we know that we're supposed to be doing. So for example, if you're like a brand new salesperson, okay, and you're working a sales job and they tell you like, hey, you got to make some cold calls. And instead of making those cold calls because you know that it's going to make you uncomfortable, you don't deal with rejection well, you don't want to get yelled at, you're scared of that moment. Instead, you turn to corn and you start watching that instead. So it's like an escape mechanism. It's an escape. It's a coping mechanism for you to be able to put off doing the thing that you know that you should be doing, which is making those phone calls. And it doesn't even have to be from a sales standpoint. If you just dread making that phone call, or you just dread going on a date or something like that, that could be one of them. So procrastinating is a big one. This one is a really big telltale sign. If you crave sugar. So I understand that a lot of us have a sweet tooth, but if you are constantly craving sugar in the sense that you've always got to have it for dessert, or you always have to have dessert, or you always have to have some sort of sweet. You always have to be, popping some sort of candy in your mouth, or some sort of like sweet treat, always popping something in your mouth so that you could taste like the sweetness. That's another telltale sign. And what you got to go back in order to understand the sugar craving, you got to go back like to our ancestors. Back then, actually, for us to be able to find something sweet, our ancestors to find something sweet was actually very difficult. It was very difficult for us to find glucose when our ancestors were roaming the earth. We could get access to things like meat, and we would go hunting, and we would kill, and then we would eat the meat of whatever it is that we were able to catch. But when it came to sweet things, we didn't always find that nor have access to it. And so our brains are already hardwired to love glucose. And so when you have sugar, aka glucose, it sends these signals to your brain that says, "Oh my gosh, give me more, give me more." And so you develop a dependency and addiction to that as well. And so when you're watching corn, you're training your brain that you can get this intimate moment and think back to our ancestors, how when we wanted to reproduce, we had to travel far and wide to find a mate. Sometimes we didn't always travel in tribes where a mate was sometimes accessible, because within our tribes we had alphas that mated with the people within our tribe. So in order for us, or people that were not the alpha in the tribe, in order for them to be able to mate, they had to travel out far and wide and potentially start their own tribes, or find somebody to bring in. So when you look at it from a pornography standpoint, that still reigns true, where we still are trying to seek out that intimate encounter. And what that teaches us is that when we can search up on corn and be able to have any intimate moment at a minute's notice, what that does is that teaches us, well, if we can get it here, I should be able to get it through glucose. And that's where the sugar cravings begin to manifest. Okay. Another one is if you're out of shape. Okay. So sugar and out of shape kind of go hand in hand, because if you're eating sugar constantly, then the hormones within that are sugar is a hormonal thing. A lot of people think, oh, if you eat sugar, that's going to cause you to gain weight. Not entirely true. When you eat sugar, when you're having sugar, that causes your body to release a type of hormone that holds on to fat. So if you eat anything else in addition to sugar, the hormones that are being activated by the sugar are going to cause your body to hold on to that weight. And that's how we end up gaining weight when we start eating a lot of sugar. So if you're out of shape, that's one. If you're bad with money as well, if you're broke or you're struggling financially, that's another one. Two more. Another one is if you have anger issues. So corn teaches us to be able to choose any partner, any thumbnail, any action that you want them to do. Like, we can have like a full-on intimate experience. In fact, with AI coming out pretty soon, you're going to be able to choose any actress that you like, and you're going to be able to type in what you want them to do and what kind of scene you want them in, and it's going to be literally indistinguishable from reality, and you're going to be able to view that. So if you have like anger issues, um corn teaches you to be able to get those kinds of things, whatever you want to watch, however you want to watch it, how much you want to watch. So it teaches you instant gratification. And when you're just going about your everyday life, you project that into reality. So when something doesn't go your way, or somebody's not understanding, or something like that, that requires you to be a little bit patient, and you're not used to that because you're constantly getting instant gratification from watching corn, guess what happens? You start to get frustrated in reality. And so that's when the anger issues start to happen. And then kind of, segueing along those lines is if you rush things. So if you're always like on the move, like rushing, like trying to get to that thing, trying to, you're late to your meeting or you're late to work or you're just like trying to get through things very quickly, that's another sign. So again, like I said, corn corn is not the problem, okay? And this is the first thing that I want you to know from the years that I spent in these libraries, buying books, researching all of this, everything that I've come to know over these last several years with not only just studying on my own, but teaching other addicts and coaching them out of this. The main thing that I want you to know is that corn is not the problem. The actual problem is a word that you've probably never ever heard in your life. In fact, it's two words, and it's two words that this is probably going to be the first time you're hearing it. The problem is not corn. The problem is your salience network. I'm going to say that again. The problem is your salience network. Now, you might be asking, what is that? Your salience network is like your brain's spotlights. Remember how I used the word spotlight earlier on in this? Your brain's spotlight is your salience network. So imagine you're in a dark room. Maybe some of you have played a game like Slender Man before. Imagine you're in a dark room and all you have is a flashlight. And you use the flashlight and you're going around the room. If you're in a dark room and your flashlight is pointed this way, you're not going to be able to see what's over here because the light is not illuminating on this side. It's only illuminating what's over here. So the only thing that you're going to be able to see is what's over here on this side. So what happens when corn is on this side and then the stuff that you really want to do in life is over there on this side? Well, if your brain's spotlight is over here pointing in this direction, the only thing that you're ever going to see and become fixated on is corn. And you're never going to be able to illuminate and see and understand the stuff that you want to do in real life. So the salience network is basically your brain spotlight. It's a dominant focus. Non-addicts, people who are not addicted to corn, they live pretty normal lives. They have their dependencies, but it's not anything that's wrecking their lives to a large extent. Non-addicts can control the spotlight. So imagine you've got this big giant spotlight like they do with like the movies. So imagine you can stand in front of this camera and move it around. So non-addicts can move this camera to one side and they can illuminate. And then if they want to shift their focus, they can move it over here. They can move it up, down. They can shift their focus if they need to. Imagine it's like a heavy light. So it's not very easy, but they can shift it around if they need to. It might take them a while to move it over, but they possess the ability to do that. That's non-addicts. However, addicts struggle to control the spotlight. Okay. So imagine a much, much heavier spotlight, one that you like really can't move. And so imagine you're trying to move that spotlight away from corn and you're trying to move it to more productive stuff for your life. And you're holding on to that spotlight and you're like, I can't move it. Like you're trying to move it as much as you possibly can, but it's not budging. And every time you try to move it over a little bit, it resets itself and goes back. That's actually relapse. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Now, if there's anything that if there's anything good that came out of being an Uber driver, especially here in Orange County, it's that I had the pleasure of being able to meet some of the most successful people that I've ever met in my life. I mean, I've met couple celebrities. I can't say which. Maybe I'll reveal it someday. But I have met multi millionaires, picking them up, picking their brains. I would honestly drive these actual same hills. And I would pick people up in these multi-million-dollar mansions. All my neighbors here have like multi-million-dollar homes. Like my neighbor up here has a G-Wagon. It's so cool. I like to drive up and see. He's got a G-Wagon and a Ferrari in his garage, and then his home is like 4 levels. And at the top level, it's like it's higher than anybody else's on that part of the hill, and he's got a killer ocean view. And he's literally my neighbor. And I've had a chance to just talk to these people, ask them what they do, and I got to see the difference between very unhealthy people who were able to get to this point in their life, but I also I've seen healthy and I've seen unhealthy. Now, the highly successful, healthy people with their spotlight, theirs is already fixated on all of the stuff that they want to do, and they actually purposely try to challenge themselves to move it over to something that they know that they shouldn't be doing. Whether it's corn, whether it's substances, whether it's you know, uh, alcohol, whatever. They purposely try to test themselves to see if their brain spotlight will do it, but it will just not allow it. So it's kind of like the opposite with an addict, how you can't move that spotlight to productive stuff for your life. The highly successful, healthy people, remember, I'm talking about highly successful, healthy, not unhealthy. Unhealthy, you could still be a functioning addict. You could still be, unhealthy and then have your spotlight fixated on stuff that you know that you shouldn't be doing. But what you want is you want to be highly successful. You want to be healthy so that no matter how hard you tried testing yourself, you can't move that spotlight into unhealthy stuff. It's so fixated. And this is what I mean when I talk about being purpose driven, knowing what your goals are, knowing exactly what you want to do, where you want to be, where you want to get. That spotlight is so anchored into the ground that you couldn't move it if you possibly try. That's what we're talking about right now. And that's what I think I'm going to be able to explain to you guys um, in the rest of this video. So, Salience Network. So last thing I want to say is that your brain is like partially blind, okay? Partially blind in a sense. Um, and your salience spotlight helps your brain see. So imagine your brain is like in this like dark room, but the only things that you can see in that room are just being illuminated by the moonlight, but it's very dim, so you're still liable to bump into things. Like imagine that's what your brain sees. And then when your brain gets a flashlight, then everything becomes clear, okay? So what you need your salience network to do is to illuminate the right stuff. If it illuminates the right stuff, the brain knows how to follow and observe and process what it's seen. But the brain is only going to process and observe what it sees. So if it's looking at the wrong thing, then it's only going to process the wrong stuff. So now the question becomes, okay, Tyler, we understand the salience network. We understand that the salience network is like the spotlight for your brain, illuminating certain things, and whatever we're illuminated on is going to be the thing that our brain is going to focus on, is going to put its dominant focus on. Okay, so now how do we move our spotlight? Okay, by the way, salience is not a new term or anything like that. In the English language, we've been using the word salience, but the word salience has its own variations in other cultures. For example, in Buddhism, they call it tana, tana, and it's the craving desire that leads to suffering. So that's exactly what corn is for you. It's that craving desire that leads to suffering of your finances, of your health, of your relationships, of your happiness. In Sanskrit, they called this klesha. And what they mean by that is that it's a destructive mental state that fogs up your clarity and makes you, prompts you to make really bad decisions and bad choices. And then there's a kind of variation of it in Hindu. They call it a Sakti, but a Sakti is more about is more about talking about attachment. So you can have so think about this. You can have an attachment to something that is good for your life, which is what you should aim for, but you can also have a Sakti towards something that is negative for your life. So if you're a Sakti, is pointed towards corn, then that's an unhealthy attachment. The attachment to it is unhealthy. But if your asakti is pointed towards things that are good for your life and productive for your life, then it's a healthy asakti. So you can see how it's more like the attachment. So that's their variation. And porn is highly salient, very, very salient. And why is it salient? Why is it why is it so addicting for us? Well, I'll tell you. Because corn is very high stimulation. Very, very high stimulation, especially with over time how things start to escalate and you're starting to watch some really extreme stuff. It's very, very stimulating. And the other component of that is, so this is a two-part thing. It's highly stimulating and it takes low effort for you to access it. So anything, you almost pick anything that's very high stimulation, low effort, very addicting. I'll give you the perfect example. Slot machines. High stimulation because you've got this fantasy, this idea of what it could look like if I win the jackpot. Oh my God, I can get there. I can get there. And what kind of effort does it take for you to pull the slot machine back? Very low effort. And that's why slot machines are very salient as well. Gambling, very salient as well, because high stimulation, low effort. The other reason why corn is highly salient is because it is a big emotional charge. So it's private. Okay. A lot of us are very drawn to things that are private. Think about it. Are you more curious about something? Anybody, it doesn't really matter. Are you more curious about something that is open to the public? Or are you more curious about something that is private? Okay. Are you more curious about the park down the street, or are you more curious about what's inside Area 51 or something like that? What are you more curious about? You're more curious about something that is private. The other component is that it is forbidden. Okay. So corn is highly salient because it is forbidden. Okay, we don't really talk about it. I always tell people you can get your friends together and you can go drinking because alcohol is, you can become addicted to that, right? When it comes to substances, you can get your friends together and you could do a bunch of substances together. But do you ever bring your friends together and watch corn? Um, I was involved in a very unhealthy alternative lifestyle back then, and I do know people who would actually come together and watch it. But for the most part, I would say that none of us get our friends together for a corn party. Okay. So it's highly salient because it is forbidden. Okay. And go back to the Adam and Eve story, right? What was the one thing that they were not supposed to touch? They could have touched anything else in the garden. But what did they decide to touch? The forbidden fruit. So we have this like draw towards the private, the forbidden, the fantasy driven, the taboo. We have this inclination to always want to be um, interested in it. And then the other component on why corn is highly salient is because it's predictable. So if you click on that thumbnail, you can read exactly what it says and you know what you're going to be getting. So if you read that thumbnail that says so and so gets blanked by blank, when you watch that video, you're going to expect so and so getting blanked by blank. And it's predictable because you know what you're going to get. Okay, so how I'm going to talk to you in a minute about how you can move that spotlight because at the end of the day, that's the answer. How do you move that spotlight off of the bad and how do you move it towards the good? But before I tell you how to move that spotlight, I want you to understand something that is going to completely destroy your chances. I call this the three landmines of relapse. There are three different things that are going to prohibit you from being able to move that spotlight, even if you learn the things that I'm going to teach you on how to move it. Okay, so make sure that after you learn these three things on how to move the spotlight, make sure you also keep in mind that there are 3 landmines that even if you learn the secrets on how to move your spotlight, these 3 things will kick your butt and send you back into watching it over again, aka a relapse. You don't want a relapse, okay? I deal with this with a lot of my clients. A lot of them deal with relapse, and I tell them like it's part of the game, but if you want to minimize the number of relapses that you have, pay very close attention. So, the 3 landmines of relapse. Number 1 is stress. A lot of us cannot take stress. So I did a video on this not too long ago, but what is the most what day of the week do people watch corn the most? The answer is Sunday. It's Sunday because a lot of us are going back to work on Monday. We don't want to go back. We're scared. Like, we're just like, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed out. Like, I don't want to have to start work. Like, I was just enjoying the weekend. I was just starting to enjoy it. Oh, I don't want to go back. I'm so stressed out. Let me numb out. Right. So, stress is going to send you right back and cause you to relapse. So, in your process of learning right now how to move your spotlight, one of the things that I want you to make sure that you are supplementing with that is making sure that you are doing things that keep your stress levels down. Now, you might be like, well, Tyler, like I do everything possible. Like I try everything. Like there's nothing I could do to lower my stress. I'm trying. You got to get creative. Okay. Going back to the slot machine example, a lot of what I like to tell my clients when I first start working with them, and if you get into my course, I have a course where I'll teach you how to get out of corn addiction in 90 days or less. One of the first things that I tell you in this is that this is going to be just like playing the slot machine. In order for you to get out of your corn addiction, everything has to line up perfectly. So if you ever played the slot machines, you know sometimes it'll be like a cherry or a lemon and something that says bar. So you can't win the slot machine unless everything lines up perfectly. So it's got to be like cherry, 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 or lemon, lemon, lemon. It has to be all the way across for you to be able to win. So, like I said, with stress, you got to find out what that cherry is, that first cherry. So that first cherry is figuring out what is causing me to be stressed out and what can I do in order to minimize it or reverse it. For example, I know one of the things that was stressing me out was the fact that I wasn't getting enough exercise. I was upset that I was 250 pounds, 260 pounds, and I needed to do something about it, but and it was stressing me out. So what I did is I started to walk. And going on walks lowered my stress level. It was very low stimulation. It lowered my dopamine tolerance. More on that in just a second. And pretty soon, walking 1 mile a day turned into 3 miles. And then 3 miles turned into 5 miles. And then eventually, I went a whole entire year walking 7 miles every single day. So you got to find what is the thing that's stressing you out the most. What is the opposite of that to counter the stress? That's number one. Number 2 of the 3 landmines of relapse is boredom. Okay. It's very simple. When you don't have time to watch corn, you will not watch it. It's very simple. If you don't have time to watch it, you won't watch it. I heard somebody's I was watching a coach's video on corn addiction, and he had mentioned that he was talking to a boss of his, and he said like, hey, like he jokingly said to his boss like, man, you're always working, like you ever watch corn? And the boss looked at him and said, if I had time I would, but he doesn't have time. He keeps himself busy. Whether you love him or hate him, I really like something that Donald Trump once said about addiction. I think he was thinking more in terms of like alcohol and substances, but I think this really applies to everything. He said, if you are addicted, if you have an addiction and you want to stop it, keep yourself busy, stay busy. And it doesn't matter whether you like him or not. Like one of the things that I firmly believe is that if you want to get out of it, keep yourself busy because is this is all stimulation. So if you gravitate towards the corn stimulation, well, then the other stuff that you do, like going for a walk or calling a friend or something like that, that's not going to be enough stimulation for you because you're used to the high stimulation that corn gives you. But if you focus on stuff like working out, going to the gym, walking, calling friends, spending time with family, then what happens is that all of that amounts to like one big amount of stimulation that you don't really have time to dedicate to watching corn because you've gotten so much stimulation from so many different things. So number 2 is boredom, and like I said, the way that you are going to counter that so that you don't hit that landmine is you are going to stay busy. The third landmine of relapse is loneliness, okay? So I know that a lot of the times we are on dating apps and we are trying to meet people, and then we meet people in real life and there's just something dull about it because give you the perfect example. One of my clients was working with me, and he was struggling because every time he would meet a girl and they would get like intimate, he wouldn't be able to get hard. And I asked him like, how come you think that you weren't able to get hard? And he goes, oh, that's easy because she wasn't as enthusiastic as the girls that I see in the videos. So these reactions that the girls were doing in videos, they that was his new standard. So when the girls that he was meeting in real life didn't give him that same kind of reaction, that same kind of enthusiasm, it turned him off because this was his new standard. So when you're lonely and you're watching corn, it can create these really high expectations that when you do eventually get to things in real life, you're going to be like, well, what? This is not what I'm used to seeing. This is not what I'm used to. And that's just the component of, you know, um, you know, well, if you're lonely, one of the ways that I suggest for you to reverse it is start joining some friend groups. Start going out. Start being around people. And if you're the type that's like, I don't even think I can make friends, that's okay. Just start very, very basic. Okay? Go here's my little trick. If you're afraid to start talking to people, go to a restaurant. Sit around other people. Go to a restaurant, sit there. You can go by yourself. I go to restaurants by myself all the time. Sit there, order some food, be around the people. That's one of the reasons why, psychologically, that is one of the reasons why we go out to eat so that we could see and be around other people. Okay. I'll explain that another day, but that's one of the reasons why we go out to eat is so that we can have these like micro interactions with people. So if you can get to that point, then next time you go out to another restaurant, sit there, look at someone's food. You don't even have to mean it. Just say, "Hey, that looks good. What is that?" "Oh, it's the I don't know, the Cobb salad or something like that." "Oh, that looks really good." "Yeah, okay." Boom. You just made an interaction. And then the next time you say, "Hey, what is it that you're eating?" Obviously different person, different time. "Oh, it's the Cobb salad." "Oh, man, I was at a restaurant, last year, and oh my gosh, I ordered something just like that. Have you ever been to Moe's right down the street? It's so good." "Oh, no, really? No. What's it like?" "Oh, let me tell you about it. It's really great. I really like their root beers." And now you got a conversation, right? So you just kind of like progress, get a little bit better every single time. And that what I just explained to you right now requires you to go to a restaurant 3 different times. So, what does that mean? That means on 3 different occasions, you are not gonna be home lonely watching corn. So now this prompts you to go out and go do something on 3 different occasions, okay? So those are the 3 landmines of relapse. Okay, now let's talk about what we're here to talk about. How do you move that spotlight away from corn and move it towards more productive stuff for your life? So let's jump right into this. So remember, keep in mind the 3 landmines of relapse. So number one is you must lower your tolerance. What do I mean by that? Okay. You need to get used to low levels of stimulation again. Corn is one of the, if not the highest spike of dopamine that anybody can get. It's a very, very high spike. It rivals that of methamphetamine. It rivals that of I don't even know if I can say it, but the white powdery stuff that adults like. Um, it is more, believe it or not, it has a longer sustained high. Corn has a longer sustained high than if you were to have intimacy time with a girl or a guy or whoever, whatever your preference is. If you were to have an actual physical like encounter with somebody, corn gives you a longer sustained high. Isn't that crazy? So it's very, very, very stimulating. So you're living up here. This is your bar. You're living up here. What you need to do is you need to lower that. Why do you need to lower that? Because every time you feel like not even watching corn, because you'll get to a point eventually where you won't want it as much, but what I am saying is that you need to get to a point where this level of stimulation is okay with you. So before we were up here with corn, right? But maybe we want to lower this, and maybe this level right here is maybe lifting weights, or maybe it is, going out with friends, or maybe it is visiting like a girl or a guy that you're seeing or something like that. Maybe this is where you need to lower it to, and maybe you got to lower it even more. Reading a book and feeling accomplished and feeling good about it. Either way, your threshold, your tolerance needs to come down. That is the first thing that you need to do, because if you do not do this, anything else that I tell you beyond this point is not going to matter. You must lower that threshold. So what are some ways that you can start lowering your threshold? Well, you could do what I did. I just started to walk more. I would go for a walk, and my level of stimulation was, oh, what do I see while I'm out for a walk? Oh, I notice those people over there. They're laughing. Oh, that person got an ice cream cone. Oh, that person over there is playing in the water. Oh, wow, look at that big wave. Whoa, is that a dolphin out there? That was my stimulation. And that's not the same level of stimulation as corn. So over time, I'm up here and it's just coming down more and more and more. With every walk that I did, it just came down more and more and more and more, to the point where I'm just like right here now, and I don't need this level of stimulation in order to meet a need that I have. You could this is crazy. If you could do this, I'm gonna give you a lot of props, but you can. And actually, I did practice this in the beginning when I was testing different things on what you should do, because I spent months like testing things like what can lower your threshold, your tolerance the most. And so one of the things that I did was I just sat in boredom for like 5 minutes. And your mind races, and you think about the future, and you think about all these different things. And what's crazy is that all these thoughts in your head become the actual stimulation. And thoughts in your head is actually very low stimulation. Even if you might be thinking of corn, you're actually not viewing it and taking it in. You're not letting some external thing that, even though corn is predictable in the sense that you'll know what they're going to do, you know what you're about to experience, you don't know every single thing. Like you don't know where this person's hand is going to move. You don't know where what movement this person's going to do with their body when you're watching corn, right? So there's still some level of like, I don't know what's going to happen, but your thoughts are your own thoughts. So every component of it, you control what you think, you control what you close your eyes and you can see, you control all of that. And because of that, the stimulation is actually a lot lower. Okay. So sitting there in boredom, letting your mind race for like 5 minutes, just thinking, like I said, thinking about the future, thinking about, what you're going to have for breakfast, or thinking about lifting weights, or thinking about, whatever. You could also cook, right? You could just cook, just looking at different types of food, spices, and all of that. Either way, Something you do has to lower it. And like I said, this is just like a slot machine. You got to line up cherry with cherry with cherry. If you want that prize, you got to line them up. Okay. You got to find your thing. Number two goes back to the word salient. You need to create new salient spotlights. So we're going to move our spotlight to this direction, but you need to create this target. So it's not going to do us much good if we take the spotlight and we move it to a blank dark corner of the room, because our brain is going to be like, let's go back over here because there's nothing to see here. There's nothing stimulating. So we need to create targets. Okay. We need to create something that is worth shining the spotlight on. And a good way for you to answer that question is, what are you emotionally invested in? Okay. You may not take a lot of action because maybe you're just lazy right now. You're procrastinating. Maybe you've got some big goals, or maybe you have some things or places that you want to go, people you want to meet, or something like that. But right now, you got to ask yourself, what are you emotionally invested in? Your brain needs to believe that whatever it is that you choose is worth chasing. That's what's going to allow you to be able to move this from one side to the other. Okay. So, um, if there's nothing new for your brain to target, then it's just, like I said, it's just going to default back to corn. So you have to create these new targets. One of the ways and I'm going to go off script a little bit here. One of the things that I like to do whenever I feel like I'm off, I'm not on the right track, or I'm not following my purpose, or I'm not following exactly what I know that I should be doing, is I will do the 7 whys test. And if you've never heard of the 7 whys test, I'll give you the short 30-second version of how you do it. So I want you to take out a sheet of paper and I want you to write down this exact phrase. Why do I want to stop watching corn? So write that down. Why do I want to stop watching corn? And then you give yourself an answer, because blah, 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 whatever your answer is. After that, then you are going to ask, why do I want that? So that's going to be your answer. So let's say if I wanted to stop watching corn, the reason why I want to stop watching corn is because I want to lose weight. And then the next why is going to be, why do I want to lose weight? And then you're going to answer that question, because I want to, run the marathon. Why do you want to run the marathon? So you're going to say why 7 different times. And whatever your answer is at the end, that is what you are emotionally invested in. That is something that matters to you the most. That is what they call your why. Okay. So that will give you kind of like not to confuse you, but that'll be kind of like a guiding light for you to be able to create what you want to move that spotlight onto. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So the third and final thing is the third thing is you need to show your brain. What does that mean? You need to show your brain. You need to show your brain the new pattern. You need to show your brain the new thing so that it can change the target. So you know how these lights, like we're going back to the example of the light on the swivel. Sometimes these like swivels, they have like a little directional like pattern that you could follow. They kind of just like, they sit on the swivel and then you can move it over as you want. You need to show your brain that that is the path to it, because you don't want your spotlight going up here. You don't want it coming down here. You don't want it going over there. You want it on the swivel. You need to show it the pattern of how to move, how to go from here and move very, very precisely to here. We don't want like our spotlight going crazy all over the place, right? Trying to find, oh, what are we supposed to be focusing on? Is it this? Is it this? Like, no, where do we go? We don't want that. We want that light to be able to shift in the most efficient and effective way possible and moving it to the thing that we want the most. Okay. Your brain Your brain learns like a child. Your brain actually learns based on what your body does. So your brain is like observing, like a child watches their parents. Your brain is observing like a child, and then it makes decisions based on what it's seen. So you know how uh, if a parent is cursing in the car, then you hear like little Timmy say the F word like 3 minutes later. It's because the little Timmy observed dad saying the F word or something like that. So just like a little baby, your brain is like a child. So you need to show it the pattern so that it follows it appropriately and locks in on that thing. Um, so those are the three things, okay? So the first thing, like I said, you need to lower your tolerance. Lower your tolerance with some low stimulation related stuff. Teach your brain that we can be stimulated. We don't necessarily need to be all the way up here. And the second thing is you need to create new salient targets. So you can, like I said, you could do the 7 whys quiz. You can start asking yourself, what am I emotionally invested in? Whatever you are emotionally invested in, dude, write it down. I don't care if it's, I don't care if it's, I want a nice car. I wanted a fucking beach house. I got a fucking beach house. That's what I wanted. So I put down, when I did this, I wrote, I want a beach house. I want to travel when I want. I want to be financially stable. I want to be able to have autonomy and do what I want when I want. I want to be able to start a business. These are things that I wrote down. So you need to be able to do the exact same thing. If you want to be able to move it over towards stuff that you want for your life, pick what you want for your life. Don't be like, well, I need to be modest here. I need to be humble. You know, maybe I would just like to focus my attention on, a candle making hobby. If that's your thing, then that's your thing. But if you're trying to be modest, that's you gotta your thing has got to be emotional, man. This is where you start to get this is where you need to be a little bit selfish. Okay? If you want to do things for you, if you want things for you, write that down. If you're doing it for your family, write that down. It has to hit. And I'm going to give you a little snippet of what's in the course. Because remember I said there's 3 parts of your brain that you have to trick. One of those is called the amygdala. You have to anchor something to the amygdala. The amygdala is all about recognizing things that are emotional to you. So if you're motivated by having a house by the beach or something like that, and you pick, oh, I would love to have like a pet horse. It's not gonna work for you. And you write down, I want to have a pet horse, when really what you want is to be at the fucking beach and be able to walk over here whenever you want and touch the water. It's not gonna work if you aren't real yourself. You can be a little bit selfish on this one. What motivates you? I want to retire my mom. I wanna be able to take care of my family. What is that thing? I want to be able to go to college. I want to get a degree. I want to do it. Whatever it is, you gotta be like, what hits you, man? What makes you go like, yes, I want that shit. That's the thing that you need to write down. That's the target that you need to create. And then finally, the last thing I said is you need to show your brain the pattern to get there. Okay. And what do I mean by show your brain the pattern to get there? Well, just like it just like with the beach house here, it, it's not like all of a sudden this appeared out of nowhere. There were steps that I had to take in order to get here. And in fact, the way that I got here is I reverse engineered the process of what it would take to get here. I knew, okay, I have to canvas the area. I gotta find beach houses that have ocean views. I gotta have ones that have a good amount of space. I gotta be able to walk to the beach. I want to be able to uh like there were a lot of different criteria. So I had to reverse engineer. How am I going to find it? I couldn't find a place for a long time. I couldn't find the ideal beach house. And so what did I do? How can I find the information? Go talk to people. So I talk to people around town. Excuse me, sir. Hey, I see that you you look like a resident. Like, can I talk to you for a sec? Oh, excuse me. Hey, are you hosting an open house? You're like, I had to reverse engineer this. So in the same way that you want that car, or the same way you want to take care of your family, or the same way that you want to, whatever it is that your thing is that you want, you've got to reverse engineer it. You got to say, how can I get there? Give your brain a clear path. And I'm almost giving you like the second part of your brain that you have to trick, but give your brain a clear path. And I promise you that swivel will go right this way and your brain will see, this is the path to getting there. Let's do it. Okay. So that's what I mean by show your brain. So, like I said, you are not addicted to corn. You are addicted to the importance, the spotlight that your brain gave to it. So you need to take that spotlight and you need to redirect it. Okay. If you do not redirect it, it's always going to be fixated. Now, like I said, if you're an addict, you depend on corn, it's not going to be easy because you got to literally take that damn thing and you got to like move it over. It's going to take some strength. You got to move it over, but it's on a swivel, so it's controllable. Okay. Because it's on a swivel and you're going to learn how to reverse engineer how to get there, how to get to that path. It's going to be on a swivel for you to be able to move it appropriately. And you're not going to be like all over the place, like trying to figure out how can I get it fixated on this. And do not let that obsessive energy go to waste, guys. I always say, like, if you're a corn addict, you actually have a superpower. If you are a corn addict, you have a superpower because not everybody has obsessive energy. One thing that I've learned in coaching, like I said, almost 200 people, not everybody has obsessive energy. If you have a addiction, if it's a true addiction, I'm not even going to go out on a limb and call it dependency. If you got an addiction to corn, you have something that a lot of people wish that they had, and it's obsession with something. People spend their whole entire lives and they procrastinate, or they actually do put in the work trying to find what's the one thing that I'm the most obsessed about? What's the one thing that I should be doing? Like, I don't know what I should be doing. Be in some ways thankful that you have obsessive energy. You don't need to be thankful that it's fixated on corn, but you got to be thankful that you got obsessive energy. Now, like I said, let's take it and let's literally take it and fire it in the direction that is going to get you the things that you want out of life, okay? Because very few people have it. Alrighty, those are the three things. If this helped you, please, please, please like and subscribe. Or if you're watching this somewhere else, please give me a follow. This really helps. Follow me on my other channels or my other platforms because I give content like this pretty regularly. And yeah, if this helped you, then I'm going to put a link if you want to get into the course where I teach you. I can get you out of corn addiction within 90 days. And I can also put you in the right mindset. I can help you get into the right mindset to help you get those things that you want out of life. Like I said, 3 years ago, I was living in my car, and the only view that I had in the morning was a view of some stinky trash can that I parked next to. Now, when I wake up in the morning, I just walk out to the driveway and I look and stare at the ocean. And then sometimes if I don't feel like just staring at the ocean, it takes me 3 minutes to touch the water. Okay? Pretty good for 3 years ago being homeless. All right. So yeah, um, like I said, make sure you follow me. That's the most important thing right now. Um, and then if you guys are interested in getting in the course, click the link below so you can learn about how to get out of it in less than 90 days. Okay. I will give you the exact formula. I will teach you I'll teach you way more than what you got in this free lesson today. Way more, and I will get you out of it. Okay. I'll help get you out of it so that this way you can be put on the right track to get what you want out of life. Maybe you want your partner back. Maybe your girlfriend left you and you want to put in the work to get her back. I will teach you how to redirect your obsessive energy. All right. Talk to you soon.